Manufacturing Matters is an MFG radio network production brought to you by GIE Media's Manufacturing Group as industry experts take deep dives into the latest manufacturing matters, whether it's new innovations, products, technologies, and emerging markets that help you understand better why manufacturing matters to you and also to the top companies in the medical, aerospace, defense, and electric vehicle manufacturing industries. Hello and welcome to our latest roundtable discussion from GIE Media's Manufacturing Group, Successfully Navigating Industry 4.0. I'm Jay Kaufman, the managing editor for GIE's Manufacturing Group of magazines. We'll be joined by two of the brightest minds in the manufacturing industry in a minute, but we will first like to thank today's sponsors, SMW Autoblok and Hawkridge Systems. SMW Autoblok is a work holding company focused on achieving customer goals and expectations with the highest quality products and services. SMW Autoblok combines stock standard product with a highly trained sales, service, and engineering team to consistently provide the ideal work holding solutions to customers across a wide variety of industries. The organization strives to achieve a deeper understanding of customers' needs to provide products and services geared towards specific customer applications, maintaining long-term mutually beneficial partnerships to enhance machine tools and drive modern manufacturing. Now, Hawkridge Systems is the leading provider of engineering and manufacturing tools, technology, services, and training in the United States and Canada. And solutions include HP, Markforged, and Formlabs 3D printing technologies, Artec Hexagon and Creeform 3D printers, and the complete portfolio of Dassault systems, along with SolidWorks 3D Experience and CamWorks manufacturing software. Hawkridge Systems is one of the largest award-winning providers of additive manufacturing solutions and has received the top SolidWorks Reseller Award many times since its inception in 1996. The company also offers worldwide training through Hawkridge Systems Store. Based in the Silicon Valley, Hawkridge Systems has 22 offices in the United States and Canada, providing coast-to-coast coverage in North America. Our panelists are standing by waiting to answer questions about how analytics, robotics, and automation, along with others, can help you embark on the Industry 4.0 journey. But first, let's get to know them a little bit better, as we are joined once again by Larry Robbins. He is the CEO and president of SMW Autoblok USA. Robbins joined SMW Autoblok in 2007 as the national sales manager before being appointed president in 2019 and CEO earlier this year. As president of SMW Autoblok's commercial division, Robbins is responsible for all strategic sales and marketing initiatives, as well as overseeing SMW Autoblok's North American sales team and customer base, including machine tool dealers, OEMs, and various projects internationally. Robbins has more than 35 years of machine tool manufacturing experience, and prior to working for SMW Autoblok, he owned a successful manufacturer's rep company for 13 years. Robbins' expertise in the machine industry began early when he worked side by side his father, who owned a prosperous distributorship in New Jersey. And Cameron Carson, the Senior Vice President of Engineering at Hawkridge Systems. Carson is an industry expert with more than 20 years of experience in mechanical engineering and design and manufacturing technologies. A member of the senior leadership team since 2012, Carson plays a key role in shaping the strategic direction of Hawkridge Systems, leading the technical sales and professional services organizations, and helping define the product portfolio. He directs daily operations relating to the company's engineering, design, and manufacturing solutions, identifies strategies, and sets technical sales objectives to boost profitability and sustain long-range growth. Carson started at HRS as an applications engineer in 2006 before being promoted to regional engineering manager in 2009. Without any further ado, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Cameron, we will start with you. So, how do you currently define Industry 4.0 or the Industrial Internet of Things?
Yeah, thanks. It's good to be here. It's a great question. I was thinking about it. I don't know if I could give like a coherent single good answer if I wasn't like already prepared, knew you're going to ask something about that. It's a really broad space. I think for in my mind, really, it's about digital transformation in manufacturing, and looking at, I think it's about leveraging the data that you gather in that digital environment to enhance productivity and throughput. For us at Hawk Ridge, really, we have kind of a smaller subset of focus in that paradigm, looking at the CAD, CAM, and additive manufacturing space. So opportunities to leverage digital design for manufacturing tools to improve workflows, shorten iterations, improve quality, and even use the concept of a digital twin, right, to do in-field support of products once they're deployed.
Thank you, Cameron. So, Larry, over at SMW, what is the definition that you guys look to when people ask what is the industrial Internet of Things or Industry 4.0?
Cameron kind of hit the nail on the head. It's a very broad-based subject. I mean, it depends on what part of the industry you're coming at it from. For us, it's more about the ability to have interconnectivity between machine tools, controls, and the peripherals that are used on the machines to get better understanding of operations and more flexibility. There you go, Jake. First time this one.
Yeah.
And it allows you to have communications across a much wider base of either customers or customer support and design people. It depends on, again, what part of the industry you're in. For us, in our circumstance, it's becoming more and more important now with the introduction of our electronic products and our electronic sensoric monitoring. But beyond that, I think the Internet of Things, the definition of that becomes what it does for your organization. And I think for us, it's interconnectivity and the ability to collaborate with customers on a much broader, easier base.
Thank you, Larry. So the next question that I have is there still a resistance to the Industry 4.0 or the IIoT? If you mention it, do people still cringe, or is it something that's becoming more universally accepted in the manufacturing industry?
Jake, I think it depends again on the company. It's very hard because people are very resistant to any kind of change. Let's face it. And I've said this before in other seminars and other webinars. You have to get buy-in from the shop floor to the top floor. If the guy on the floor doesn't like it or somewhere in between, you're going to fail miserably. You better get a buy-in and make sure everybody understands this is to enhance this organization, not to replace people. The biggest objection you generally get is especially in a larger shop. Walking in, the first thing people say is, "Oh, so you're here to take our jobs?" I was like, "No, I'm here to secure your jobs." And they just look at you like you're an idiot and send you on your way. And then when it's all over and they look at you and go, "Wow, man, with this training, I feel like if I have to go somewhere else, I'm now more valuable." And I just smile and go, "You're welcome," and walk away. So,
yeah, awesome. I agree. I definitely, change innately has risk with it, right? And so there's natural cautiousness in every circumstance. And we're talking about big investments, legacy processes that are necessarily working, right? And we're trying to tell them to be more efficient or do something new. And so I think it's a natural kind of cautiousness. But the thing that we see also in terms of this resistance is I think there's still a lot of what is it, right? Like understanding of what is Industry 4.0 and what are their concepts. And certainly I think we've gotten most of the early adopters. Some of our customers are always ready to go for the new big thing, ready to go, and skin their knees. But when you get to the more mature customers, they want to have total confidence, right, that they're going to be successful and have ROI. So I think that's a big thing we see there.
Okay. Is there any kind of like a number that you would put, like if you went to talk to like 10 customers randomly, is it like a 50% buy-in at this point, or is it kind of going towards the majority that are actually, interested in Industry 4.0 and accepting it?
I'd say it's probably 50-50. I think there's still a lot of educating going on in these conversations. Some of the products that we sell and the services around those products, I think they seek to those OEMs have developed kind of out of the box solutions that directly address elements of Industry 4.0. And those are kind of the easier to I think adopt types, concepts and products. So those are certainly a lot easier.
Yeah. And then Larry, on your side, are you seeing it 50-50, or is it going towards the majority of people that are accepting Industry 4.0?
I think the majority of people realize they need to accept Industry 4.0. It's not necessarily that they want to, but they're seeing that if they don't, they're going to get left behind. The biggest problem with any new technology, Jake, as you know, is cost. When you have a brand new product going to a brand new part of a marketplace, the first resistance you get is, how much was that? And then you explain to somebody what it's going to give them on a return and how they're going to get their return and that it's going to happen this fast. And they just look at you. And half of the time, and you're right, it's probably 50-50. Half of the time, they're like, there's no way. And the other half of the time, they're like, wow, if we can do that, think of the other things we could do. And you always look for the lowest hanging fruit. And Cameron hit the nail on the head. We all have that batch of customers that we can go to and go, hey, man, I got something new. Can you try this?
Right.
And invariably, they're willing to do it because they gain something from it being early adopters too. So I think 50-50 is a good way to look at it. I think, again, it just depends on the segment of the marketplace. You have to remember, I'm coming from a market that 30 years ago, you were turning a handle to get a chuck jaw to move. It was hard enough to get people to go to hydraulics. Now getting them to go to, 4 independent drives on a chuck, they just look at you like, what? And then you tell them and they're like, there's no way. And then you show them and they're like, wow, we can do that in our shop. And you shake your head and go, sure, with a little bit of integration, a little bit of help, we can help you do anything. So again, it just depends on the people and their willingness to accept.
Yeah. I see a little bit of correlation with that. We really have 2 different types of engagements, having design software, CAD systems, which with SolidWorks being the #1 CAD tool in the world, that's more about an incremental story and also just the actual ASP, the selling price for that product is much lower compared to potentially spending $1 million and deploying production 3D printing, which is evolving on a constant basis. So those are definitely 2 different engagements. But Larry, what you were talking about, the eye opener, it's surprising, but even today with 3D design CAD, we still have conversations where we meet people using AutoCAD, drawing in 2D, and sometimes stubborn, saying, hey, I can draw a 2D faster than you can make that 3D model. And I always love the moment where you can say, all right, well, let's draw something simple. And they show you, they beat you, but then you say, all right, now let's change the design, or let's add something to it, right? And then I think that's the eye opener for it.
Yeah, they get that terrified look on their face at that point. Yeah. You go, wow, this does work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like John Henry against the steam engine or whatever it was, the old wives' tale. So then, Cameron, if you do have a customer who's asking about Industry 4.0, what is kind of like your sales pitch? What's something that you harp to them to make sure that they really understand what it is?
Yeah, I think Larry touched on this aspect about the need to stay competitive, and that's what I think these 2 tools will do for those who adopt them, right? So our products offer customers the ability to rapidly prototype, to be able to iterate, provide new kinds of business models, create customization like they haven't been able to do before, and then just operate more efficiently, right? And so I think that's pretty compelling to get them in to listen to a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron. And then Larry, over on your side, what is kind of like the selling point that you tell your customers if they are talking about Industry 4.0 and have questions?
I've taken a different tack on this now. It used to be get in a room, a bunch of sales guys would talk amongst themselves, figure out what they were going to do, and they would present to the customer. I've always said, if you sit there long enough, the customer is going to tell you what they want, how much they're willing to pay for it, and when they need it. I think if you listen to what the customer needs, I think sometimes they don't realize that they know exactly what they need. They just don't know how to convey that information in what they think is our language. Mm-hmm. And I've said to people before, have you ever heard me talk? This is my language. This is as good as it gets. But it's funny because people go into it with a lot of apprehension because they're afraid. They're afraid of any new technology or any new change because am I going to be the guy that spent millions of dollars and you flick the switch and all of a sudden everybody's just standing around looking at each other? If you do it right with the right company and the right partners, you'll never have to worry about any of that stuff. And your payback will generally be sooner than most people give you. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Larry. The next question I have is Industry 4.0 or the Industrial Internet of Things something that can be implemented in a factory if you do not have automation or robotics? Is it something where any machine could be technically part of the Industrial Internet of Things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
For one really good example, we sell a piece of manufacturing management software from Predator, and what that software allows to do, we have DNC software, and so that's for managing for actual managing of monitoring of machines and real-time machine monitoring, and then also centralized management for the actual machine code. And you can pretty much, in an analog machine, you can put a switch on it. You can really put a trigger on any kind of process or step in a shop floor, and turn everything into an IIoT type device. So you can get real-time monitoring and manage higher efficiencies, and also predict downtime, things like that.
Is that the same kind of thing that you've seen, Larry, where there are certain things that can be incorporated without having automation or robotics?
Absolutely. It's if you start a little more simplistic and get people to understand what the basis of what you're presenting is all about. I think much too often people try to give a customer a complete package. Listen, I'm going to come in, I'm going to install this from day one. It overwhelms them. I say to people, take small steps. You didn't just stand up and walk. You learned how to crawl. You hit your head a lot. You fell down. You got up. You started over. Once you got it down, you went on to the next step. So I think the Internet of Things is very similar because it can be used across such a broad spectrum. You can tie it into manual machine tools with a digital readout with the ability to have a signal sent to it to stop an electric motor from working. So it can be from something so simple to something so complex. I think it's more dependent on the customer, what their perception of it is.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So yeah, I'll stay with you for this one then. You've talked about having buy-in from the shop floor to the top floor, but is there anything physically that a factory would need to have in order to implement Industry 4.0? Is there any kind of, I guess, like, power requirements or anything like that when it does come to, or machine requirements when it does come to time to do that? Or can you right off the bat start implementing?
I think you have to look at a customer situation and what they're starting with. Some shops you walk into and they haven't bought equipment since the 80s, and you have to explain to them that their limitations are going to be their equipment and their ability to interconnect within the setup they have now. That doesn't mean you can't start again small and grow from there. But I think as long as, again, you have to give the customer the basis for where they're going to start. You're going to need these types of controls with this type of computing system, with this type of CAD and CAM software. If you're going to 3D print, you're going to need this for this. You're going to need inspection equipment. If you start talking about all of that at once, people just go, and that's it. You just lose them. So for us, I always say, let's start. I know this is kind of a cop-out. I always say to a customer, what's your expectation out of this? What do you hope to get out of this? Other than, wow, you did a great job. What do you expect that this is going to do for your company 5 years from now? I said, because if you're thinking 3 months down the road, you better start thinking 3 to 5 years down the road, because it has to be flexible enough to allow you to adapt it to other situations. You could be making lighters today and remote controls for computers tomorrow and doing it in the same factory. So you have to be flexible enough to do that down the road.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. And then, yeah, Cameron, what kind of things are you seeing as far as what physically would have to be on the shop floor to implement Industry 4.0?
Yeah, I just to agree with Larry there. I think having your processes, your infrastructure, IT infrastructure, kind of the standard, today's kind of standard, right? Those in place is your baseline, because totally agree. You want to have a big picture plan, have a sense of a roadmap of where you're going to be going with this. But I think having incremental wins and taking kind of the low-hanging fruit opportunities to implement these kind of technologies is kind of a wise approach to it. And something I wanted to chime in also that you mentioned, Larry, that from the shop floor to the top floor, I think that top buy-in is important. And I find quite often our customers don't think in the sense of how to be successful with change, and actually practicing good change management. And that's about getting everyone involved on board, understanding their role in it and what the big picture is, right? It's a lot of communication that's required. But change management plan is, I think, a real big factor in being successful.
Thank you, Cameron. So then the next one I would have to ask is, obviously this is current technology, but it's also technology that's in development. How is that going to help bridge any kind of skills gap that you might have at your company? And then, Cameron, you can take.
I'm a big fan of out of the box, and OEMs are looking to be themselves competitive, right, and offering elements of Industry 4.0 and managing data. For us, the big push, SolidWorks as a design tool, but the Dassault Systems 3D Experience platform is an environment where it's essentially a cloud OS for Industry 4.0, right? So it's a series of apps that really focuses on a data-centric model where you can take from ideation all the way through your whole organization through apps that are specific to different roles, and have that flow and that connectivity of data, so there's a lot less error. But generally, that's out of the box. And ever since starting to sell CAD systems, and customers have asked me what computer should I get, I've been a big fan of off the shelf, right? because things work and they were designed to work in a certain way. And I think leveraging out of the box concepts, even we see that even with our 3D printing partners, right? Their management of their fleets of 3D printers. All of our pretty much all of the major manufacturers of 3D printers allow either predictive maintenance, fleet management, and quality management. So I'm a big fan of that. So yeah.
Thank you, Cameron. And then Larry, same kind of question to you. What are you seeing as far as like closing the skills gap using Industry 4.0?
I think as it becomes adopted on a more regular basis, instead of people being early adopters, that it becomes the norm and it becomes the day-to-day. I think that what we all have to remember is we have to get schools to think this way too. We're very fortunate in the area we're in. Some of the local schools have gone back to shop programs and electronics programs and automation programs, and we're actually hiring kids at this point out of those programs. And I think if we can get the next generation of worker to have an idea of what they need to do and what they need to do to continue to succeed. Every generation says, oh, this generation is going to ruin the world. Well, they're probably right. We are in some way, shape, or form. But it always amazes me how the next generation always pulls it out. I mean, somebody said to me once not all long ago, I don't know how you hire millennials, or I don't know how you work with millennials. And I was like, why? What do you mean? And they're like, well, you don't have a problem. I was like, we did, but our problem was solved. And they said, how did you solve your problem? And the first thing I said is we stopped hiring millennials, which is not true. I said, you need to hire a millennial to hire millennials. And they just looked at me. I said, because they know what they want. You have to be aware of what the expectation is, because people's expectation of manufacturing is you're going to go to work, you're going to get dirty hands, you're going to come home at the end of the day all sweaty and stinky, and you're going to take a shower, go to bed, get up and do the same thing over and over again. I call BS on that. And I say, the one nice thing about this industry is you can have 15 different people making the same product. They make it 15 different ways. That doesn't make any one way right. And that's the beauty of what we do. Every day you get to create something new. And it's what's kept me interested for 43 years. I mean, if you haven't been able to tell from our, the relationship we have, Jake, a squirrel runs by the window. I'm like, squirrel, it's true, but sad. But it's just getting that next generation to understand they're going to be an integral part of the success of an economy that everybody believes is faltering. I believe the more we reshore and onshore, bring product back to the United States and start selling within our market and outside of our markets on the benefits of manufacturing in North America, I don't think we can fail. We're a country that started at a deficit. I think we're a country that will continue to be strong and lead in the world.
Yeah, it's funny. It's a pretty golden rule that I think we learned from a global economy is, every culture can do things in a different way, but in the end, it's about the outcomes, right? And I think people learn quickly that if you fight someone else's way instead of working with them and embracing diverse ways of approaching things, it's the same thing that we have to think about in terms of generational differences, right? So that's a really good point.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron. So, Larry, this is something that you had kind of touched on when it does come to those new workers that might be getting into the industry. But what kind of training is there available for workers and even the customers to understand these intelligent systems and, be part of Industry 4.0, IIoT, however whichever nomenclature you prefer?
Jake, it's nice to see that people are starting to realize that if we don't have a trained workforce, how can they succeed? I think that you're seeing through associations like AMT, NTMA, SME, all the training programs that are available to get the next generation of worker up to speed and aware of what's going to come down the road. Again, as long as we engage people and get people interested. Again, I've been doing this for 43 years. I get up every morning with a smile on my face. Makes people around me nuts. But you know what? I like what I do, and I've always liked what I do. And I hope that this next generation realizes they're such an integral part of an economy. Because let's face it, when I was growing up, McDonald's was not a career, it was a part-time job. Our country was not built on services or fast food or Walgreens or whatever it may be. What it was built on is making things and making sustainable things and building an economy and building infrastructure. It's all well and good that we all have cell phones and we all can have instant gratification and communication. I don't know that that's good anymore. I remember the days when you could say, "Oh crap, the batteries in my pager must have died." At least you had some peace and quiet. The separation of personal and business is getting to be thinner and thinner. I don't mind it. Again, I'm going to be 62 years old. So for me, I'm on the downhill slide. You guys are just coming into this. So my suggestion is make sure that you train this next generation by imploring upon the system how important it is. High schools, colleges, technical schools, associations, within your own organization. We're about to get certified in the state of Illinois to go back to doing, not just internships, but having apprenticeships again. We're trying to train the next generation of worker. If you look at our spectrum or our matrix of employee spread right now, 30% of our people are 50 and older. We aim as a company in the next 5 years to kind of reverse that and have it as about 65 to 70% of our company are under 40 years old. I know people laugh every time I say it, but I'm kind of excited about that. I like having a new generation with new ideas and fresh, not afraid to speak their mind. That's one thing about this next generation I really do like is you guys don't see color, you don't see sexual persuasion, you don't see religious. I love that about you guys. You come into it with an open mind. And to be honest with you, I think that's what's going to continue to make this country and our industry successful. And I know I kind of veered off the track, Jake, but to be honest with you, it all kind of does tie back. If you don't educate your workforce, you're going to fail.
I will say I've seen some very positive changes coming out of school and trades programs. There was quite a while there where we were fully educating even new engineers on the fundamentals of 3D printing, right? And how to design for additive manufacturing, all those things. And now it is something that's coming out of the schools where they're already having that conversational level knowledge of 3D printing and even staffing people who are 3D printing technicians and operators. That was a very slim space, and when salary survey reports come out, and there's actually a category for additive manufacturing, that's a positive sign. So we also we partner with a company, Solid Professor, to provide our customers e-learning, and they're focused on the design and manufacturing space in terms of their education product. And they actually provide learning tools from K through 12. High schools and elementary schools are actually taking on this training at the college level, and then of course career development for the existing workforce. There's a lot of good resources, as you mentioned, SME, and I think UL. There's a lot of work going into providing kind of best practices and kind of base knowledge in this space. So it's very positive.
I also think too, with having the desktop printers where it is something that someone could do in their home as a hobby and then still also obviously transfer it to a career is something that has definitely helped, because I have friends that'll just print, little trinkets and stuff like that, and they think it's the coolest thing. And it's one of those where it's like, you guys do know that there's an industry where you could get paid to do that instead of just having it be something on the side.
Kind of the democratization. I'll say though, it's also a pain in the side as well, because there's a big difference between hobbyist printing and true production, industrial grade printing.
Yes.
And that can be a challenge, right? Like, why can't I just get this $800 printer off of Amazon versus $20,000 Markforged printer? And there's a world of a difference in a long conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cameron. The next question I have for you then is, obviously with these Industry 4.0 and IIoT systems, you are getting a lot of data. What do you do then with that data to improve the performance, your shop floor prowess or processes? Like, what is that data then able to be used for?
That's a big complicated question. I definitely revert to out of the box functionality that I'm seeing OEMs use, right? And the big one is with 3D printing space, that the ability to do fleet management, right? One of the big promises and how people are leveraging 3D printing is having digital inventory, right? And distributed manufacturing. So being able to manage fleets from one single location, and user management and library management, those are things that the 3D printing companies are all working and have really strong, robust systems for that.
Thank you, Cameron. So Larry, the same question then to you. Where can you see that data then be used to improve your performance and, elsewhere on the shop floor?
I think it gives you predictability. If you know what the outcome is going to be after you've done all the testing and the research, from that next first part, which is kind of an oxymoron, but from that next first part on, that setup's going to be successful. You're going to run optimized. Now, you're always going to kind of make improvements, but it gives you the basis to start out with a successful platform. If everything you do is R&D, which in our industry has been kind of a constant, it's hard to make a profit. You have to have the ability to maintain a specific process in order to get to your end result and do it economically within the realm of, I'm going to make a profit at this. What do they say? Hogs go to market, pigs go to slaughter, don't be a pig. So as long as you're making enough to pay for what you have and for development going into the future, I think that you have to take into account all those things. But again, you have to also build flexibility into all of these processes. You must, because if you're not flexible, you're going to fail in the future.
Thank you, Larry. So the next question then I have is something that, since we do cover a lot of aerospace, defense, even medical with so much proprietary information, what are the concerns of cybersecurity when it does come to implement Industry 4.0? What kind of things need to be addressed to make sure that that data that you are collecting is secure?
Well, the funny part is, it's the first question everybody asks when we say, "Oh yeah, it's stored to a cloud and you can choose the cloud." Well, who runs the cloud? I was like, I don't know. If you find that out, let me know too. But it's, the funny part is, we don't access anybody's data. We don't want your data, but you have to have the ability to be able to take that data, interpret it, and make improvements based on that data. Again, every situation is going to handle it differently and process their ports differently, or process their processes are different. So you have to take into account what might work for one account is not going to work for another account. And you have to have an open mind and be flexible within your own way of thinking to let people know that at that point, they're the most important customer to you. Because at any one time, we have a couple of hundred projects going, and large projects. People generally don't see that. They see that their project is the head, at the head of the house. I mean, that's why we want every customer to feel. And I think that's what this can do for you, is give you predictability and a better basis to start from every time.
Awesome. And then, Cameron, on the side of cybersecurity, what kind of things need to be addressed in order to make sure that the data that is collected during Industry 4.0 is secure?
Yeah, I think, fortunately or not, our world is going to the cloud and relies on good common sense, best practices from an IT standpoint. and leveraging those kind of standard protocols and practices. It may be your Office 365 tool, or if you're in Google environment, but I think you can't find a single organization that isn't already having to build that skill set, and those apply, I think, just as well in this space, right? And I will say one thing that occurred to me that I think is an interesting space is with digital inventory and products being transferred and shared to customers and partners. I think an interesting space that is just starting to get some development is how do you protect that IP, right? And make sure you're not getting forgeries of this digital copies, that type of thing. And I think blockchain, which was another big buzzword for a while, I think that's something that can be leveraged. And some 3D printed companies are actually actively working in that space to help protect IP. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, thank you very much, Cameron. The next question is actually the last one I have scripted, and it's essentially, if we have this same conversation, we'll say in 5 years, like, what will happen to the industry 4.0 IoT? How will it continue to evolve? What kind of do you see coming down the line? And then, sorry, Cameron, I'll go to you for that one first.
Yeah, absolutely. AI is such a big buzzword. It's funny. We were doing a customer event in San Francisco a couple of weeks ago, and as I was driving in from the airport, every single billboard was some sort of advertisement for their best version of AI. So it's everywhere. Even though there's a lot of hype, I'm very bullish about it and excited. The space of manufacturing and the design process is naturally iterative and takes a lot of interactions, and I think that's the best place to leverage AI and machine learning to get rid of the tedious, mundane stuff or rules-based automations that can be applied. So I think that's really exciting, especially in the space of 3D scanning. I think it's kind of the last corner of the digital manufacturing ecosystem that is as much art and black magic that just there is no easy button for reverse engineering and scanning. And a lot of that is operator interaction and iterating, making decisions about the point cloud that you get from your initial scan, and making decisions on what kind of surfaces you're looking at, and removing noise and all those things. And AI is a perfect tool for that. And so I think whoever, I haven't seen a lot of work in that software space, but whoever really leverages that, I think is going to hit gold. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron. And then, Larry, the future of Industry 4.0, the industrial Internet of Things, what do you think will continue to happen? How will it evolve, if we are set at having the same conversation in a few years?
Jake, I think that's almost impossible to answer. I think it's growing so exponentially fast, and every iteration grows a little bit faster. Every iteration gets a little bit more attention. I agree with Cameron. AI has become the thing you're hearing about for whether it be for a child and an athlete wanting to know, an athlete to know it's part of the Olympic commercials now. A young girl is running and sends it to a famous runner who feeds back. I mean, that's the basics of it. Can you imagine a machine learning a process? Now, I know there were a lot of bad movies written about this in the 80s and 90s, but a machine learning a process and being able to intuitively improve it. And because the processing power in a computer is much greater than our brain, think of the abilities we're going to have in the future. Just the growth that's going to be exponentially quicker, faster, better, more accurate. Think of what it can do in terms of human life. I mean, just curing of diseases. I always say to people, we're not curing cancer, we're selling chucks, for God's sakes. But it's true. I mean, what we do is dependent on what's available out there now and what's available down the road. And I think the future is very bright in our country. We have a lot of very smart young people and a lot of very intuitive older people that are feeding them the information they need to have a basis for it. It's very interesting when you walk into a shop now. It used to be you'd start in a shop, you'd work with a machine where you turned handles. Now it's funny because we have a little tool room, and I'll say to the young kids at work first, "Hey, what do you think?" And they're like, "I don't even know how to run. How do you even turn that on?" I said, "See that switch that says on and off?" I said, "It's very simple." But it's like anything else, trying to teach a kid time. Why do they need to know that? In the corner of your computer screen tells you the time all day long. My daughter's trying to teach my grandson how to read Roman numerals now, and he just looks at her like she's nuts. And I think that's what's going to happen in our industry. I think it's going to get so fast that your developments are just going to get exponentially better and faster and stronger.
Awesome. Thank you, Larry. So before we wrap up today, it does look like we do have an audience question. They would like to know what organizational structures should be in place for a successful IIoT implementation. So either Larry or Cameron, if you guys would like to address
Go
that
ahead,
one.
Cameron. You know what? Mine would be some wise ass answer. So I'm kidding.
Yeah, what organizational structure should be in place for successful IIoT implementation? I think, directly, I think where the question is asking is, I think having an actual strong internal IT team to help support, and IS team as well, is a critical thing. I think that's important for any kind of implementation, to be able to have the capacity to manage, your install locally. From a different perspective, a big part of, Hawkridge Systems is a value-added reseller, and we're always asking ourselves, what's our value add, right? And it's about how we package our professional services and how we provide consultation to our customers to be successful with using these tools, use them in the best way. So organizationally, I think having a partner that you're comfortable with, that is willing to go through the process and apply best practices and help you realize the design, the implementation, and the support phases is really important, especially if the vast majority of our customers aren't big enough to have a full IT organization, right? And that's what we try to be, is that function as a consultant. So I hope that answers that question there.
I believe so. Well, thank you very much, Cameron. Thank you very much, Larry. And a very special thank you to Hawkridge Systems and SMW Autoblok. Once again, Cameron Carson and Larry Robbins, I appreciate your time today and your insight, gentlemen. So I hope you have a great day.
You too, Jake. Thanks again for the opportunity, as always. Cameron, nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Larry. See
Take care, y'all. Bye, guys.
You can listen to all of our episodes of Manufacturing Matters and Lunch and Learn podcast from the MFG Radio Network on Spotify, Apple Music, and on our websites, todaysmedicaldevelopments.com, aerospacemanufacturinganddesign.com, defenseandmunitions.com, and evdesignandmanufacturing.com.